Nonetheless, now moving on to our next fixture that we are going to be talking about, and this game is just as huge. Australia versus England. Massive clash between these two sides. There's a rivalry there that has extended back for decades, and now we get to see it go head-to-head in Australia. Now, Australia, they are coming off 3 losses in at the end-of-year autumn internationals, but they were all in the Northern Hemisphere. Australia's record down under is a lot better. They were able to beat South Africa twice throughout the Rugby Championship, which is a massive achievement, but they did actually play England in one of those Northern Hemisphere internationals, and they did end up losing 32 points to 15, so not hugely close in that fixture, but I think we're going to see a different Australian side playing in Australia for this fixture. Looking through at the key players for Australia throughout this fixture, I have got Michael Hooper as one. He always seems to play well at international level. We saw an unorthodox try from him in the autumn internationals where he did end up scoring the try kind of backwards. He ended up backing into the player, but putting the ball down over the line. It was unorthodox, but it was effective. And I think Michael Hooper, he's got a real rugby brain, and he's going to be seeing what he can do up against this English side. Now, we might see a little bit of Michael Hooper and Mara Itoje, just trying to see who can be a little bit more of a nuisance at the breakdown. And I say that in the most respectful way possible, because they're both that good at just causing opposition players uncertainty, I guess you would call it, with just not quite sure what you're supposed to be doing when you do reach that breakdown, and that could be the dangerous side. Might see a few penalties go in the way of Hooper, maybe a few penalties also go on the way of England though. The next name that I have got is Nick White. He had a decent season for the Brumbies throughout Super Rugby Pacific, but at international level he just seems to be able to snipe round the side of the breakdowns, which can be massively valuable for Australia, getting them to go forward extra metres and luring in some of the defence in the process. Then the last name that I've got, it is Samu Karevi. Now, last time he made his way back into the Wallabies, it was for the Rugby Championship. He was on fire, running metres, defenders beaten, and he was looking very strong in the process. The thing is, though, he did not play in Super Rugby Pacific. Instead, he was playing in Japan, but with the Japanese league slowly getting stronger and stronger, it seems like it's not really a disadvantage to be playing in Japan. You do get yourself a little bit of a lighter season on the body. You don't take quite as many big hits as you would in Super Rugby or the URC, etc. But you still increase your fitness. You still find your way through defenders. And that is something Samu Karevi is going to have to do up against England. Now, looking through at England, they did come off a loss not too long ago up against the Barbarians, 21 points to 52. But in that match, they were missing their Leicester Tiger players and their Saracens players, who were both playing in the Gallagher Premiership final, and that was probably a fair majority of the players they would have liked to select, as at the end of the day, if those two sides are at the top of the Gallagher Premiership, some of those players in there must be doing something right to get them towards that mark. In the Six Nations England, they didn't do the best. They were 2 wins out of the 5 games, which they would have been pretty disappointed with, and from what I've heard, this lineup that they've gone with here, England, is relatively close to what the public wanted to see. I think the only thing I've heard said is maybe Billy Vunipola is the only player that some people would take out, but it's going to be interesting to see how England go. If they have got almost the lineup that everyone wanted to see, you would like to think that maybe we will get to see a great performance from England as well. But the 3 players that I have isolated for England throughout this fixture, first of all, Jamie George. I think he is going to be dangerous at the rolling maul, because last time England played Australia, he was just that. He was able to use that physicality of his big forwards in front of him and just drive his way over the try line. He did it many times for Saracens throughout the Gallagher Premiership as well. And when you've got a good pack in front of you, it is easier to make those metres off a maul, get yourself that penalty advantage, and possibly get an Aussie in the bin at some stage throughout this fixture. Then the next name that I have got, it is Marcus Smith. And the reason I've got him there is, to say it nicely, he had a shocker. Unfortunately, up against the Barbarians, he didn't really get the ball off the tee the way he would have liked. He had a lot of missed opportunities. But still, alongside that, his running game was solid. So I think if he does get the kicking right, alongside that running game that he normally possesses, the offloading, the passing, I think he's going to be dangerous throughout this fixture, which is why he is there for me. And then the last name, a man who was playing in that final for the Leicester Tigers, it was Freddie Stewart. Now, he was one of those guys who came onto the scene not too long ago, a young up-and-coming English fullback, and he certainly proved why in the Six Nations. He was brilliant under the high ball, and also that running game. He's got the size to him, so he is able to normally make quite a few metres in the process as well. So that is why he is the last name that I have got on my list. Now we're up to that stage once again of trying to predict who wins this game. This one, I'll be honest, this is the one that's gone back and forth in my mind the most, of whether or not it's going to be an Australian win or an English win. How aggressive will we see England after losing to the Barbarians, and how ready will Australia be after having a majority of their players playing in Super Rugby Pacific? They'll be chomping at the bit to get out there and take down the English. I am going to say for this matchup, I'm going to be extremely bold here. And I'm going to say that England win it by 3. Could be wrong. Could be very wrong. Australia might win it by 15. But I'm going to say England sneak it in the end and get themselves a 3-point win. So we will have to wait and see whether or not that will be the case.